There is a quiet shift within you when you stop asking the world for permission to exist. Most people believe that respect is something others should naturally give them. But they overlook a deeper truth. Respect is first something you demonstrate to yourself. The way you allow people to speak to you, the behavior you tolerate, and the boundaries you fail to set all quietly communicate a message. Without saying a word, you are teaching others what is acceptable. If you constantly accept being interrupted, dismissed, or taken for granted, it does not take long for others to see that as normal. Not because they are intentionally trying to disrespect you, but because you have shown them through your actions that this is the level you are willing to live with. When you lack self-respect, you often try to earn validation by over-giving, over-explaining, or staying silent when something feels wrong. You might think that being patient or understanding will make people value you more, but in reality, it often has the opposite effect. It creates an imbalance where your needs are overlooked and your voice becomes less important. Over time, this pattern becomes your identity in the eyes of others. They begin to expect less from you because you expect less from yourself. The shift begins the moment you decide that your time, energy, and emotional well-being matter. This decision is not loud or aggressive. It is quiet, firm, and consistent. You stop agreeing to things that drain you. You no longer laugh off disrespect just to keep the peace. You begin to pause before responding, choosing dignity over approval. These small changes send a powerful signal. People start to notice that you are no longer as easily accessible, no longer as easily influenced, and no longer willing to compromise your values. At first, this may feel uncomfortable. You might fear that setting limits will push people away, and sometimes it does. But what it truly does is reveal who was respecting you and who was simply benefiting from your silence. As you continue to honor your own standards, others are forced to adjust. They either rise to meet the new level you have set, or they step away. There is a moment when a person begins to understand that not everything deserves a response, not everything deserves access, and not everything deserves space in their life. This understanding does not come from anger, but from clarity. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you from the world. They are filters that protect your peace. Without them, your time, energy, and emotional well-being become available to anyone who demands it, regardless of their intentions or behavior. When you struggle to set boundaries, it is often because you fear rejection or conflict. You may believe that saying no will disappoint others, create distance, or make you seem difficult. So instead, you say yes when you mean no. You agree to things that exhaust you. You allow conversations that drain you. You stay in situations that quietly disrespect you. Over time, this creates an internal tension because your actions no longer align with your truth. you begin to feel overwhelmed. Not because life is too heavy, but because you are carrying things that were never yours to hold. The moment you begin to respect yourself, your relationship with boundaries changes. You start to realize that every yes you give to others is a no you give to yourself. This awareness brings a different kind of strength. You no longer explain yourself excessively or seek approval for your decisions. A simple, calm no becomes enough. And in that simplicity, there is power. It shows that you value your time and that you trust your own judgment. Walking away becomes another form of boundary. Not every situation needs to be fixed or understood. Some things only require distance. When you choose to leave what disturbs your peace, you are not being cold or uncaring. You are choosing alignment over attachment. This shift often surprises people, especially those who are used to your availability and tolerance. They may question your change, test your limits, or try to make you feel guilty. But boundaries are not meant to be negotiated under pressure. They are meant to be lived consistently. As you continue to honor your limits, something within you becomes quieter and more stable. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth through sacrifice. Your presence becomes more intentional, your energy more grounded, and your interactions more genuine. Before anything changes on the outside, something shifts within you. It is subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but it begins to influence the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, and even the way you think. When you start respecting yourself, your energy is no longer scattered or dependent on the reactions of others. It becomes centered, calm, and deliberate. You are not trying to prove anything anymore, and that absence of need creates a quiet strength. In the past, you may have found yourself overthinking simple interactions, replaying conversations, or adjusting your behavior just to be accepted. Your tone may have been uncertain, your posture slightly closed, your presence seeking validation without realizing it. People can sense this, even if nothing is said directly. Energy is communicated through small details. Eye contact, pauses in speech, the way you respond under pressure. When self-respect is missing, these signals often carry hesitation and doubt. As self-respect begins to grow, these signals start to change. You speak with more clarity, not because you are louder, but because you are more certain. You listen without feeling the need to interrupt or defend yourself unnecessarily. There is a natural pause before you respond, showing that your words are chosen, not reactive. Even your silence begins to carry weight, because it is no longer filled with insecurity, but with awareness. Your body reflects this shift as well. You stand differently, move differently, and hold yourself with a sense of ease. There is less tension in trying to control how others perceive you. Instead, there is acceptance of who you are. This creates a grounded presence that people notice without fully understanding why. It is not about appearance or perfection, but about alignment. Your inner state and outer behavior begin to match. This change in energy also affects how you handle challenges. Situations that once triggered anxiety or the need to please others now meet a more balanced response. You do not rush to fix everything or take responsibility for things outside your control. There is patience in your actions and restraint in your reactions. This steadiness makes others more mindful around you because your presence no longer invites casual disrespect or emotional imbalance. Over time, this new energy becomes consistent. It is not something you switch on and off depending on who you are with. It becomes part of your nature, shaping every interaction in a way that feels effortless yet deeply impactful. As you begin to change, one of the most difficult realizations is that growth is not only about becoming stronger within yourself, but also about watching certain people slowly fade from your life. At first, this can feel confusing. You may wonder why the same connections that once felt natural now feel strained or distant. Conversations become shorter, energy feels different, and the comfort that once existed begins to shift. This is not something to fear, but something to understand. When you lacked self-respect, you may have been more accommodating, more available, and more willing to adjust yourself to keep others close. This version of you was easier for some people to be around, not because of genuine connection, but because there were fewer boundaries. They knew what to expect from you. And more importantly, they knew they would not be challenged. Your silence, your patience, and your willingness to tolerate became a space where they could remain unchanged. As you grow, this dynamic no longer fits. You start expressing yourself more honestly. You begin to set limits where there were none before. You no longer agree just to avoid tension, and you no longer stay quiet when something feels wrong. This shift can feel unfamiliar to those who knew the earlier version of you. Some may interpret your growth as distance, attitude, or even rejection. In reality, it is simply alignment. Not everyone is ready to meet you at this new level. Some people are comfortable only in relationships where they are not required to reflect, adjust, or grow. Your transformation quietly invites them to do the same, and not everyone is willing to accept that invitation. Instead of evolving with you, they may choose to step back, either consciously or unconsciously. This can show up as reduced communication, less effort, or a gradual fading of the connection. There may also be moments where people question your change. They might remind you of who you used to be, hoping you will return to that version because it felt more familiar to them. This can create internal conflict, especially if you value the history you shared. But growth is not about holding on to who you were to maintain comfort for others. It is about honoring who you are becoming. As these shifts happen, it becomes clear that not every connection is meant to continue on the same path. Some were only aligned with a past version of you, and As that version evolves, the connection naturally loses its place. Many people spend a large part of their lives trying to be seen, trying to be acknowledged, trying to be valued by others. They adjust their behavior, their words, even parts of their identity, in the hope that it will earn them respect. They believe that if they say the right things, act the right way, or give enough of themselves, others will finally recognize their worth. But this constant effort creates a quiet exhaustion, because respect that is chased often remains just out of reach. When you depend on external validation, your sense of worth becomes unstable. It rises when you are praised and falls when you are ignored. You begin to measure yourself through reactions, constantly looking for signs that you are accepted. This creates a subtle tension in your presence. People can feel when someone is trying to gain approval, even if it is not expressed directly. It shows in over-explaining, in seeking reassurance, in adjusting too quickly to fit the expectations of others. The shift happens when you stop placing your value in the hands of others. Instead of asking, "Do they respect me?" you begin to ask, "Do I respect myself in this moment?" This question changes everything. It redirects your focus inward, where your actions are guided by your own standards rather than external responses. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth through constant effort or explanation. There is a quiet confidence in knowing that your value does not increase or decrease based on someone else's opinion. As this mindset becomes stronger, your behavior naturally changes. You become more selective with your time and attention. You engage in conversations because you choose to, not because you need to be noticed. You express yourself clearly without the pressure to impress. This creates a sense of ease in your presence because you are no longer trying to control how others perceive you. Respect begins to appear in a different way. It is no longer something you demand or chase. It becomes something that others offer naturally, often without realizing why. They respond to the stability in your energy, the clarity in your communication, and the consistency in your actions. There is nothing forced about it. It is simply a reflection of the way you carry yourself when you are no longer seeking approval. And in the end, it was never really about them. It was never about forcing people to see your worth or convincing the world to treat you better. It was about the moment you stopped abandoning yourself, the moment you chose dignity over approval, peace over attention, truth over comfort. That is where everything began to change. Because when you finally stand in alignment with who you are, you no longer feel the need to chase respect. You become it. And those who recognize it will stay. Those who don't will quietly fall away, not as a loss, but as a necessary part of your becoming. So, do not fear being treated differently. It is not rejection. It is reflection. A reflection of the standard you now live by and the respect you have finally given yourself.